I guess we'll start, right? It's already, 1 second. What is it? It's more than 5 after 5. So let's begin. I was supposed to give you this class on Sunday, and to be honest, I wasn't ready. Believe it or not, to teach takes time and effort. And Adon Olom is a very, very special prayer. And I just wasn't ready. So I came on like 10 after. I said to Rabbi Paltiel, would you mind I do it tomorrow? And the reason I said this is because I could have used the extra time to prepare. Just the material, and then more importantly, mentally to prepare. So he said, okay. So then it wasn't Sunday. And then he said to me, he has a special speaker for Monday. Can I do it Tuesday? I said, sure. So they gave me a little bit of more time to be prepared. And I hope I'll give a better class because I had these 2 extra days. Let's start with this. Right? The class is about half an hour, let's say, officially, right? And then you'll have 15 minutes or so to do Q&A. I'm hoping Rabbi Paltiel will still show up, but doesn't matter. As long as you're not making noise that I can hear, huh? As long as I want you to pay attention, but it's quiet. All is quiet on Zoom, as it were. Adon Olom is said by all Jews every morning. All Jews, Sfardim, Ashkenazim, Hasidim, Misnagdim, Yemenites, Italians, everyone says Adon Olom. And they say it in the morning. We say Adon Olom after Berchas HaShachar. There are Jews who say Adon Olom like right as soon as they wake up in the morning. Before Berchas HaShachar, they say Adon Olom, because some communities consider Berchas HaShachar a part of davening, which we, Chabad, doesn't. But everyone says Adon Olom. In addition, as you know, I'm sure, in many communities, when davening is finished, they do it Friday night, they do it every day, right? Some people do Anim Zmires, and some people get up at the end of davening and they sing Adon Olom. It's a custom, right? When you're leaving the shul, they sing Adon Olom. It's a beautiful prayer. Some people don't sing Adon Olom, so they sing Yigdal. And I have to tell you, one of the things I regret as a Lubavitcher is not saying Yigdal, because Yigdal is an incredible prayer. We say Adon Olom every morning. We don't really sing it. We don't sing it at the end of davening. But Adon Olom is almost as incredible a prayer as Yigdal. If you asked me, okay, I'm going to make believe you just asked me, Rabbi Paltiel, what is Adon Olom about? The answer is, it's a meditation about God. That's what it is. It's a standalone prayer. Adon Olom you could say anytime, any place, anywhere, it's always right. You know, I have a friend. This is one of the most amazing stories. I have a friend who's an amazing person, in my humble opinion. He's also an incredible shliach. And I think he has Ruach HaKodesh. Now, what I mean was, I think Ruach HaKodesh means, I think he has subliminal Ruach HaKodesh. He has Ruach HaKodesh without realizing it. Because I know him. And he's not the world's greatest scholar, by a long shot. But he told me a story, which mamish, I saw the hand of God, because he's not the kind of guy who would think of this. Pasha, the Eibush to put the words in his mouth. He went to Japan, I think, or someplace in the Far East. And because of his work as a shliach, he sat with like 300 galochim, with a bunch of goyim, Christian goyim. And they talked about whatever business they had. And then at the end, this group of Gentiles, religious Gentiles, said to my friend, whose name I'm not going to repeat, Rabbi, say a prayer for us. Now, what do you do when a bunch of goyim ask you to say, Rabbi, say a prayer? So he has no idea where it came from him, but he said, Asher Yotzar. I told this to you when I did Asher Yotzar in this series of Tefillah prayer. He couldn't have chosen a better prayer, because Asher Yotzar is just as good for Gentiles as for Jews. Asher Yotzar is a prayer about the fact that God created our body, and that our body is amazing, and that it serves God, etc., etc. Adon Olom is like the Jewish Asher Yotzar. If you need to say a prayer, if you're any place and someone says, say a prayer, you cannot go wrong with Adon Olom. Adon Olom is not a bracha. There's no baruch atah Hashem in it. There's nothing stopping you from saying Adon Olom as many times as you want. And it's a very beautiful prayer. It's beautiful. And again, the only explanation I have, if you say to me, fix Adon Olom, give it context, explain to me where it came from, how did it get here? Adon Olom is a meditation. That's all it is. It's a meditation about Hashem, people, world. Period. That's what it is. It's a special, special prayer. Now, that's how I think of Adon Olom. I really, really believe that it's unique. There's no two Adon. There's nothing else we do during the day which compares to Adon Olom. Again, I will say that those Jews who say Yigdal compares to Adon Olom. It's similar. Yigdal is simply, I'm sorry.
What is Yigdal?
That's a good question. Open up most non-Chabad Siddurim, and near the front, before or after Adon Olom, there'll be 13 lines. Yigdal has 13 lines, which is an odd number of lines. Yigdal is a prayer said by almost all from Jews in the world, with the exception of the Lubavitchers. There are 13 lines of rhyme that correspond to the 13 Ani Maamins. Just like many Jews at the end of davening will say in what's called prose, non-rhythmic, not rhyme, Ani Maamin b'emunah shleima in Hashem, Ani Maamin b'emunah shleima. They'll say 13 lines, Ani Maamin. We don't do it, but we believe it, we think it. So many communities of Jews, every day at the end of davening, after Aleinu, they'll say Ani Maamin 13 times. I believe, I believe, I believe. So the very same things you say in prose, at the end of davening, in the 13 lines of Ani Maamin, they will say in the very beginning of davening, in a shir, in a rhyme, in a poem, which begins with the word Yigdal. Yigdal Elokim Chai v'yishtabach. I mean, I can pull out a Siddur. I have a lot of non-Chabad Siddurim because Siddur is one of my passions. Echad ve'ein sheni. It's this is not going to work. See if I find another Siddur which is less complicated. Okay, maybe here. If anybody is desperate to see Yigdal, I can just send you a copy of it. I'm looking at a Siddur. This is the classic Hasidic nusach. It's called Keser Nehoira. The first thing you say in the morning, before the bracha, is Yigdal Adon Olom, and right after that, they say Yigdal Elokim Chai v'yishtabach Nimtza ve'ein eis al mitziusi echad ve'ein yachid ki yichudei nela magam etzev v'chadusei. It's 13 lines. Okay, it corresponds to the 13 Ani Maamin. So a lot of Jews say Yigdal in the beginning of davening, and then when they finish davening, before they leave the shul, they'll say Ani Maamin, which is the same idea. It's the same idea, except that it's written in prose rather than in rhyme. Adon Olom, here, you can't see, but I'm holding the classic Hasidic nusach, which Bobove Hasidim use, and Belze Hasidim use, and Gera Hasidim use, and Ruzhone Hasidim use, and Stolone Hasidim use. Everyone uses the same nusach of Hasidim, except for Chabad, more or less. In the morning, they say Yigdal right after Adon Olom, and Ani Maamin at the end of davening. That's just the way it is, okay? We don't say Ani Maamin. We don't say Yigdal for Kabbalistic reasons, but we do say Adon Olom. It's Pashut meditation. And again, Yigdal and Ani Maamin has a specific purpose. It's the 13, which we're affirming the 13 beliefs that Jewish people have. Adon Olom is Pashut meditation. That's what it is. It's a meditation about God and man. And I love it. I really love Adon Olom. I think it's a very meaningful and an important prayer. In other words, if you're not somebody who loves to daven, and you're going to think Pirash Hamilas for one paragraph, obviously Shema Yisrael has to be first. But Adon Olom is one of those prayers that's really worthwhile to pay attention to, because it speaks to the very core. It doesn't even speak about Yiddishkeit. It speaks about God. Adon Olom is not about mitzvahs, it's about Hashem. Ultimately, everything is about mitzvahs, but Adon Olom is one of those elementary prayers that we say about Hashem and His relationship with the world and so on. I love Adon Olom, okay? That's the short of it, okay? Now, I got 25 minutes to talk about it, and I wish I had 5 hours. So I sent you this page, okay? If you go to the Google Docs for my page, So the first thing I have is the Parsha classes. The second thing I have the Tefillah classes. I sent you the questions for today, and I also sent you the PDF of the Siddur. The reason I did this is because I wrote numbers. I wrote ABC and ABC in the Hebrew and English. I parallel Hebrew and English so you can see what I'm doing. Adon Olom has 3 parts. Okay, I'm just going to read it and translate right now. Adon Olom has 3 parts. The problem with the 3 parts of Adon Olom is that they're not written in order. Okay? And I'll tell you how. If you were writing a meditation about God, if someone gave you a task, sit down and write a few lines that people could think about Hashem every day that are very important. So you would have 2 choices, basically. One choice would be, start from the person. I exist, somebody made me. He who made me for a reason. I wonder what that reason is. Maybe there is this such and such. And you would go from lowest to highest. If that was your meditative choice, you would end your prayer with such things as, my God has created me, He gave me a purpose, but the mystery of God is transcendent of that. Meaning, in other words, as much as I understand Hashem in His relationship with me, there's clearly much more to Him than I know. So if I was writing a God meditation, choice A would be I would start from the bottom. I would start with me and my relationship with Him, and I would finish off by saying, what He really is, I don't know. That would be one option. Another option is if I was doing God meditation, I would start from the top down. Who knows the secret of God? God is a mystery. He's unknowable. But God has chosen to create man, and God has created a purpose for man, and man therefore matters to God. And what is my relationship with Him, and so on. So either you start from the lowest level, how Hashem is involved in me, and then you gradually go higher and higher until you talk about Hashem that nobody understands, or you start from the highest level. No one has a clue what God is, and nevertheless God lowers Himself to be involved with man. Adon Olom is tricky, because the deepest part of Adon Olom is the middle. It's not the beginning, and it's not the end. It's very confusing. So let's read. I'm going to read and translate, okay? Adon Olom, master of the world. Or, as the philosophers would say, Adon Olom, master world. It doesn't say Adon ha'olam, master of the world. It says the master is the world. Asher malach, that He kinged. B'terem, even before. Kol Yitzur, all formations, all creations, Nivra were made. Hashem was a king before any of us existed. La'es, at a time. Now, the real translation of the word la'es doesn't mean at a time. La'es means when He created time. Na'aseh b'cheftze koil. At the moment Hashem created time, in His desire He created everything that fills time. And again, if you or I were philosophers, and of course we're all big philosophers, so we're going to philosophize and say, you cannot separate time from space. So you would read this la'es, at the instant that time and space came into being, Nasa b'chefze, He created through His desire, koil, everything that fills time and space. Azai, and from that moment forward, Melech, king, Shmoi, His name, Nikra, is called. And the way you have to read this is, from the moment Hashem created the world, He is the king of all of us. And when everything passes away, at the end of time, when all is gone, Levada, He will be by Himself again, and nevertheless, Yimloich Noida, He will rule with awe. This is the first section of Adon Olom, the first 3 psukim. Clearly, the first 3 psukim of Adon Olom are describing Hashem as a king, in 3 stages. Hashem was a king when nothing existed. Hashem will be a king when nothing exists again. And Hashem is a king now that He created everything. That's what these 3 lines say. Okay? Does anybody want to interrupt me?
How could you say that He was a king before any of us existed?
Okay, that you have to wait. That we got to go back to. That's a fair point. Anybody else want to speak now?
Yeah, just adding up to what Rabbi Zakaria said, how can he be a king of nothing after we're all gone?
This, of course, is the secret of the meditation of Adon Olom. To me, the fundamental question is, why do we first describe him as a king and then describe him as having no relationship? Look at the next section. And again, I'm giving you opportunity to speak if you so desire. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Does anybody want to speak about the 3 lines that we just read? And in the 3 lines that we just read, we said 3 things. He was a king when nothing existed. He's a king now, and he'll be a king when nothing exists again. That's what we read. Comments or questions? And of course, so far I've heard 2 comments, and the answer to both comments was, we'll get to it later.
Rabbi, why does God even have to be a king at all?
Okay.
Why can't he just be God?
Right. And I have a better question. What does the word God mean?
Right.
Okay.
No, because it almost sounds like to be God isn't, in a sense, good enough for him. He has to be a king as well. That's
very, very appropriate. It's the correct question. And it really, you're saying the same thing that Rabbi Levi is saying and that Avram said in more abstract words. You're really all saying the same thing. I'm embarrassed to say, Malachowski, what's your full Hebrew name? I can't believe I forgot.
Avram Hirsch.
Avram Hirsch, I'm sorry. Okay, you got to come back to Chayveh. Okay, anybody else? So, Chevra, I'm reading section 2 now.
What are the 2 components again? Hashem was nothing for
Hashem was a king before anything existed. Hashem will be a king when nothing will exist again. And he's a king now as all exists. Okay? Now we're doing the middle. V'hu haya, he was. V'hu hayveh, he is. V'hu yihiyeh, he will be. Now, I want you to understand. Haya hayveh v'yihiyeh means past, present, and future. But haya hayveh v'yihiyeh by Hashem means he's past, present, and future at once. Because there's no time. V'hu haya, he was. V'hu hayveh, he is. V'hu yihiyeh, and he will be. As past, present, and future are crunched into one point because there is no time. And look at the next word, besif ara, in his beauty. For those of you who have tasted Hasidus, you know that for something to be beautiful, it has to have 3 colors, a minimum of 3. In this case, 3 is past, present, and future, but how past, present, and future are crunched into, in effect, no time. Okay? V'hu echad, he's one, but ve'ein sheni. He's not the first. He's the only. Usually after 1 comes 2. When you talk about Hashem, you say 1 and there is no second. Laham shiloi. This is the translation of these words. That you can compare to him. Like the word mashal. Laham shiloi. That you can compare to him. Lahach bira. To be his chaver. Look at these Hebrew words. Hu echad is 1. Ve'en shein. There is no second. Laham shiloi. That you could use as a mashal for him. Lahach bira. To be his friend. Hashem doesn't have any friends. Hashem has no equals. Okay? And then, of course, you say the most important line, B'li reishis, he has no beginning. B'li tachas, he has no end. V'lo yoyz ha'misra, which basically means he can do whatever he wants. Okay, of all the 8 lines or 10 lines of Adon Olom, the loftiest is this one. B'li reishis, b'li tachlis, v'lo yoyz ha'misra. He has no beginning and he has no end and he can do whatever he wants. So let me pause here and let me just say, okay? Wait a second. Forgive me, Melly, just for a minute, okay? What is the most basic definition of God? The most basic definition of God. Of course, God is a topic that everybody talks about. Some people make fun of him. Some people are angry at him. Some people are depressed by him. Some people wish there's a way that they can, with God's help, make God disappear. But everyone is talking about God. What is the most fundamental definition of the word God? What the answer is? That he wasn't created. That is the most fundamental, the most basic taich of the word Hashem is nobody made him. Which of course makes you nuts. Okay, so nobody made him, but who made that? And of course the answer is nobody made him. Okay, nobody made him, but who made the thing that nobody made? And the answer is nobody made him. In the fancy world of Chasidus, we call this mitziuto me'atzmuto. God exists only from himself. Who created God? God did. Yeah. But if God created God, so then how did God exist before God existed to be able to make God? And the answer is He always was. The line in Adon Olom that represents this is this one. It's on line 4 in your Hebrew. On line 5. B'lereishis, He has no beginning. B'lisachas, He has no end. V'la'ez amisa, He can do whatever He wants. There's all the power in the universe. This is the middle section of this meditation. And the middle section of this meditation doesn't describe Him as a king. Right? The middle section of this meditation describes Him as being removed from everything. What is God? Past, present, and future are one. And we use that bad word tefedes, which can create a lot of trouble for the philosophers and the mystics in the room. Then we say He is one, He has no second. Nothing can be compared to Him. He has no friends. There's no mashal for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there's no chavrusa, right? Laham shiloi means you can't compare anything to Him. Lahach b'ira, that's a very unusual form in Hebrew. Hashem has no chaverim, has no friends. And then we conclude, Hu echad vein, and b'lireishis v'tach has no beginning and no end. V'lo ha'yo'ez v'amis, He can do whatever He wants. Now, chavre, the obvious question in Adon Olom is that if I was writing Adon Olom, I would put these 3 lines 3, 4, 5, in the beginning. I would start Adon Olom with the word Hu, or Ata. Let's say Ata, yeah? Ata hoya hoyve v'yiyah b'sifara. Ata echad ve'ein sheni. Or, you don't want to say you, say Him. Hu hoya, hu hoyve, hu yiyah b'sifara. Then the middle would be V'hu Adon Olom esher malach. And what's very frustrating about the prayer of Adon Olom is you start off describing Him as a king, then you start talking about Him in an abstraction before He's a king, and He has nothing to do with the world, and that's the middle meditation of Adon Olom. Now, what's the final meditation of Adon Olom? What is the final meditation of Adon Olom? What is the final meditation? It's lines 6, 7, and 8, and I will now read them, but I'm going to pause. Does anybody want to ask me any questions? Or make any comments?
Just before, but you were saying, so in order for if God theoretically was created, then He wouldn't be God.
That's
right?
correct. That's correct. Then He would have a different
By
name.
definition, God is not something that is created. In fact, He creates creation, right?
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then the philosophy gets very involved. Does God need creation? Does God need creation?
Well,
If
for
God
us, yeah.
needs creation, then we have a definition. He always existed, but He needs company. If God doesn't need creation, which is of course what we believe, then creation is what they call, the dirtiest words in Jewish religion, real free will. He didn't have to do it. He doesn't need it, but He chose to do it. Now the difference between these two gods, and I hate to speak in this way, a God that needs creation and a God that doesn't need creation is enormous. If you define God by creation, you've really limited Him. If you say God doesn't need anything, but He chooses to create, you're not limiting Him at all. That's what the middle lines are trying to tell us. He don't need nobody. He has ein sheni laham sheloi, ein sheni lachbira. Nothing can be compared to Him. He has no chavrusis. He doesn't need anybody or anything. And that's the middle of Adon Olom. The first 3 lines that describe Him as a king seem to conjure up a lesser God, no? A God that needs to be involved. That's why Adon Olom is such a confusing prayer, because the first 2.5 lines, lines 1 and 2, and the first half of 3, are a meditation of Hashem as a melech. The second half of 3 and 4 and 5 are the meditations of Hashem that's completely removed from the creation. Any more questions or comments?
Yeah, I missed it earlier. When does Adon Olom first appear?
You know what? Meir, you're right. I didn't answer this question. Meir is very practical. He's looking at the worksheet. The first question is, when did the prayer of Adon Olom first appear? According to most commentaries that I saw, Adon Olom appeared in the last 400 years, 500 years. It's not that ancient. It's not that old. Okay? The problem is, there's one pirush, there's one opinion, and it's the Matei Moshe. The Matei Moshe is a sefer halacha The Matei Moshe writes that Adon Olom goes back to the times of the Go'onim. No, the Matei Moshe writes that Adon Olom is at least 1,000 years old or more. But it doesn't appear in the old Siddurim. It doesn't. I don't think it even appears in Siddur Arizal. It appears in Siddur Shalah. In other words, some people hold Adon Olom's been around for a very long time. It didn't make its way into the Siddur until much more recently. Most people hold that Adon Olom is only a prayer that comes after Zman Ha'ari. After Zman Ha'ari, which is very, very, very recent. Okay? The Abu Draham doesn't have Adon Olom, and Abu Draham is the barometer for Siddur. You know, I told you this 100 times. The Sefer Abu Draham, which is about 700 years old, is and will always be the most important work on Siddur, because he analyzed Siddur line by line. He does not have Adon Olom in his text. Okay, so it may have been around a long time, but it hasn't appeared in the Siddurim until much more recently. Okay, thank you for asking me that. Anybody else? Mati, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, if by saying that Hashem doesn't need anyone, aren't you limiting him? Meaning isn't the word doesn't limiting him to not needing anyone?
Okay, negative limitation is a never-ending business. Or to say it in different words, philosophy has a problem. You have to use words. If you have to use words, you can never say everything. It's impossible. So, when philosophers say a negative illusion, there are two contexts of a negative illusion. Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening?
Yeah.
Okay. There is a limited negative illusion, and there's a unlimited negative. In other words, I say, it's not this, but by saying it's not this, I'm implying something indirect. We don't have a word that can reference a negative illusion that's not going to conjure up an indirect negative limitation. So you have to just accept the limitation of words. There's no word. There's no word to say, I don't mean this, but I don't mean anything else. There's no such word. So sometimes a negative illusion is limited, which is the point you're making. Sometimes negative illusions are just meant to be open-ended. And when you talk about the Eibishter, that's the way it is. Okay, so we're dealing with words. That's what we're dealing with, words. Words are a prison. You know, if we couldn't speak, we'd be chimpanzees, you understand? We would sit next to each other on a rock and we couldn't communicate to each other. Words are an incredible tool, a gift that Eibishter gave us. They carry ideas, they carry our thoughts, our feelings, our experiences. But words cannot represent everything. There's no words. So that's why this becomes an endless game. You know, it's like the old story. I'm not Hasidish, but I want to be Hasidish. Actually, I'm not Hasidish. I don't want to be Hasidish, but I want to be Hasidish. Well, I don't want to be Hasidish, but I want to. You know how silly that is? It's the same thing here. We can't understand God, but we can understand that we can. Well, we can't understand that we can't understand, but we can understand that we can't understand that we can't understand. So when does that game end? So at a certain point, you just say, listen, it's like pi. We can't understand God with a line on top. It goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. You follow? Any other questions or comments?
Don't we say that God has some sort of limit that he put on himself?
A self-imposed limit is not a limit. That's a religious idea. I want you to understand. Philosophy doesn't put limits on God. It defines him. Our relationship with him, our involvement with him, or the idea that Hashem is involved in the world, which is a faith issue, which is a Yiddishkeit issue, says Hashem limits himself for us to have a connection to him. And the rule is, it's a philosophical law that says, Hagbola Retzeinu Ein Hagbola, a self-imposed limit is not a limit. And of course, it doesn't define what he is. It defines his relationship with us. You understand, Melly?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
It's a little random, but so you don't have, I mean, you might say you don't want to answer, it's like a different topic, but you were saying about not understanding Hashem. Does a Yid's Emunah in Hashem have to come from the level, like believing in the level of Hashem that you get to Al Pi Seichel, or that is beyond Seichel?
Well, this is I'll answer you, Rabbi, but understand that by answering you, I'm really leaving not enough time for everything else that needs to be said. I'm going to answer because I think No, I want to answer you because there's a little tiny part of me that wants to get permission to do Adon Olom in 2 weeks, even though officially we do one topic. I promised you in the beginning of the year, every week I do a paragraph, next week a paragraph. Maybe you'll give me permission to make Adon Olom the exception. I'm going to talk about faith for a second, okay? I'm going to answer you. By definition, faith means a leap. I talk about this a lot in the prayer class that we do. Nobody believes in God because they understand Him. It doesn't mean that if you believe in God, you don't understand Him. It means that there's a separation between the brain and faith. There has to be. You know why? Because the brain can prove things. The brain can debate things. The brain can question things. The brain can't believe. Because the meaning of the word belief is surrender. The meaning of the word belief is, this is not a question anymore. This is not a philosophy. This is not a discussion. This is a fact. So the smartest guy who ever lived, let's call him Avraham Avinu, who spent 48 years of his life, or 40 years of his life, figuring out God. At one point, it stopped being a philosophy and it became a fact. There's a leap. There's a jump. I don't discuss God anymore. He's true. That's it. Now, does that have to come from the brain? It may not. But whatever kind of a believer you are, if you're a believer, you've accepted the limitations of the brain and the transcendence of faith. I told this to you recently that I was reading this book where the Rebbe was talking to some very, very smart Israelis. And he was saying to the Rebbe that this doesn't make any sense. And the Rebbe said, the problem is we're expecting the brain to give us things that the brain is not able to give us. There are things that the brain doesn't hold. And we think that the brain's got everything. It doesn't. On the other hand, he said, you have to accept the limitations of the brain and appreciate that there are things beyond. That's called emunah. If people are stuck in the need to brainicize everything, they can't have emunah. It cannot be. Whether their emunah comes from their brain, or their emunah bypasses their brain, or their emunah never had anything to do with their brain, they're not the same. You have to separate my philosophical study and analysis and questioning and doubting and even being skeptical from my belief. Belief means this is closed. This is not about the brain. This is about my soul. This is about my identity. This is about my life. This is my self-definition. So, some people, I don't usually give this answer, but I'm doing that now. Some people come to faith from the brain. Some people come to faith without the brain, either because they're not intelligent or because they're intelligent enough to know that God is way beyond the brain. But whoever you are, there is going to be, and I'm going to use a mathematical term, there has to be a quantum separation between your intellectual self and your faith. And if you can't do that, you're not a believer. And I had a man who was 80 years old sit with me when I was a bocher in yeshiva on Merkeshlichus. And he said, I'm an atheist. Him and his wife are both atheists. And I wasted my time talking to them. And at one point he says, Rabbi, you misunderstand me. The guy was 82 or 83 years old. The story happened 35 years ago. He says, Rabbi, you don't understand me. I wish I could believe. I can't. It's not like I don't want to believe. It's not like I'm convinced there's no God. It doesn't work for me. Belief is separated from the brain because belief is an absolute thing. We want to be believers. It's healthy. It's true. How you get the belief is a secondary thing. But there is an absolute separation between you and I and him and some of the guys in this forum who are brilliant. Some of you guys are very smart. And I know it because I've talked to you. But faith is separate from that. Not because faith is stupid, but because faith is not a conversation. Faith is beyond, is when the conversation finishes. And a maimin, this is my God space. I'm the biggest skeptic in the world, but my God space is not part of my skepticism. Because it's not part of my brain self. It's part of my soul self, which is a very different self. You understand, Rabbi? Yeah? Okay, let me just finish. I'll read the third section, and I'll leave the questions for next week. I'm permitting myself 2 weeks for Adon Olom, okay? Then we say this. V'hu Eli, he is my God. My God. Think about it. God belongs to me. V'hu Eli, he is my God. V'chai goyali, and he is my life, and he is my Redeemer. And of course the context is, I'm alive, and I'm free because of him. V'chai, I'm living goyali, because he gives me freedom, my Redeemer. Vitzur chevli, the word vitzur can be translated as the rock of my chevel. Chevel means my chain, my cord, my connection. Be'ez tzara, when I'm going through hardships. That's how you can translate tzara. In English, I'm going to look at how we translate the strength of my lat in times of distress. Okay. Be'ez tzara. Tzur chevli, translating the words literally, tzur could mean rock, and tzur could mean former. Former means he gives me my shape, my tziyur. Chevli, I'm translating chevli as like chevel nachalaschem, the cord that connects me to him, be'ez tzara, in times of tzaras. V'hu nisi. Nisi means he's my miracle, or he's my outstanding aspect. Umonoisli, he's my escape. Menos koisi, he is the portion of my cup. In other words, he fills my cup. B'yoim ekra, on the day that I call. And we finish with these words. B'yodei afkedruchim, I entrust him with my soul. Be'ez isham, when I go to sleep, v'a'ira, until I wake up. Moreover, v'imruchi, in addition to giving him my soul, gviyasi, I give him my body. Hashemli, God is mine, v'loi ira, and I'm not afraid. Now, these three lines, you could really divide them into two meditations, but I'm not. Just observe. What is the last thing a person says before he goes to sleep at night? You get up in the morning. And again, in non-Chabad Siddurim, this is even more than in our Siddurim. The first thing you say in the morning is Adon Olom, notice that we start our day the same way we finished the day before. And this is also true in the Amav Sheina Me'enoi, which we learned a couple of months ago. When you go to sleep, you're surrendering. What are you surrendering? Your consciousness, your control, your ownership of self. Now, why don't little kids want to go to sleep? Because they're afraid to miss things, right? Why do adults love to sleep? Because they don't mind missing everything. But healthy people don't want to go to sleep. Why not? The minute I go to sleep, I surrender. I'm not in charge. Now, how can I go to sleep? Who knows what's going to happen when I'm sleeping? What's the answer? I trust. Who? What am I trusting? My pillow, my blanket, the walls around me, the bars on my windows? I'm trusting God. And that's the last two lines. So again, when I taught this years ago, I divided this into two meditations. I'm teaching it to you as one meditation. The last three lines, lines 6, 7, and 8 of Adon Olom, are personalizing God. He's mine. He's my God. He's my God. Now, maybe he's your God also, but he's mine. Hu Eli, he is my God. And the last words, Adeshem li, God is mine. I'm going to explain next week the significance of the personalization of God. But I'm just pointing it out now, okay? Hu Eli, he's my God. V'chai, he is the life. Goyali, that makes me free, that redeems me from being stuck. V'tzor chavli, he is the power behind the cord. Be'ez tzara, that allows me to survive all kinds of difficulties. Hu nisi, he's my miracle, or he's my flag. Umonosly, he's my escape, he's my refuge, that's what I run away to. Menos koisi, he is the filling of my cup. B'yoyim ekra, whenever I call. And then I say, not only is the Eibishter mine, and the Eibishter gives me everything I have, but when I have downtime, when I got to shut off, and I have to stop being me because my body has to refresh itself, I trust him to look after me. I give him my neshama. When I go to sleep, until I wake up. And by giving him my neshama, gviyasi, the word gviya means the guf. Because Adeshemli, God is mine. And again you say God is mine, I'm not afraid. This is Adon Olom. Okay, it's 8 lines. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 10 phrases. It's 8 lines and 10 thoughts. The first meditation is 3 lines. The second meditation is also 3 lines. And the last meditation is 4 lines. Okay? Now, we don't have time. I'm going to stop now. I mean, you can maybe answer 1 or 2 questions. I didn't really delve into the questions. So next week, we'll just read the questions. We'll fabring about the questions. The fundamental question that we are letting ourselves finish this class with is why do we first speak of Hashem as a king and then speak of Hashem as he is by himself? It would make much more sense that we should first speak of Hashem as he is by himself, then speak of Hashem as being a king, and then speak of Hashem in a personalized way. My personal God. That's the fundamental question of Adon Olom. Okay? We're going to leave this hanging, and I'm going to ask you to make your comments, observations, with the full understanding that next week you come back and we do this again. Okay? Rabbi, this is why we didn't give class on Sunday. You're preparing, you're just not ready. I wasn't ready.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And I didn't do anything. I just translated the words. We say this every day. If we paid attention. If a Yid said only Adon Olom with Kavana, he'd be an amazing person. Amamish, an amazing. These 10 lines have so much. Okay, Chevra, anybody want to say anything?
I think Mati has his hand raised. Mati's out from before.
No, I have a question. I don't know. You moved on from it, so if you don't want to discuss it now, I understand that. But I was just wondering, what would you say to the 82-year-old guy? I don't know if you answered him then, but what would you answer to someone who says, "I want to believe, I just can't"?
Okay. Now, when I met him, I was 21 and stupid and didn't know it. I wasted my time arguing with this guy. I spent hours in his house. And we went around and around. He was very sweet. There's 2 things that you could say to a guy like that. Number 1, give him a hug. Really, hugs are always good. And number 2, say, like Rabbi Paltiel used to say, Kim Waig Tefillin. Do a mitzvah. Yeah, but I don't believe, just in case. You see, this man had 82 years to put up walls. He didn't put up walls because he hated God. He didn't put up walls because he wanted to keep God out of his life. He put up walls because he couldn't figure God out. He's 82 years old, him and his wife. I never met people like this. This happened in 1986. That's over 30 years ago. They got married right after World War I in the 1920s. And as soon as I walked in, the first thing she said to me was, "Rabbi, we have no children." So I said to her, "I'm very sorry." She said, No, don't feel bad. It was a personal choice. How many people in 1921 were that liberal to think that they don't want kids? Today, it's a whole religion not to have kids. But these kids, these are Jewish boy and girl, got married very young, in their early 20s, and they made a conscious decision. That's how secular they were then. Now he's 82 years old, he meets me, and I'm lecturing him about Sharichat Domana. I was so stupid. You put film on a person like that, and you say, listen, your brain is stuck. I'm not going to unstick your brain. I'm not going to undo 80 years of thinking and struggling in 5 minutes. But maybe you can let go of your brain for 5 minutes. I'm not going to bring God to you through your brain. Your brain's got 82 years worth of walls. Let's find a different avenue. That's the only thing you can do. And that's the right thing to do. And it's the right thing to do whether you're 82 or you're 28 or you're 15. Chassidus believes that the minute you start the argument, you lost. Why? Because even if you win the argument, you just started up with someone's ego. You started with somebody, you hurt his feelings. His feelings is uninterested. You don't want to have the argument. You want to avoid it. So, you tell the guy, yeah, you're right, there's no God but put on film. You're an atheist. And it's not about, you're not trying to be silly. You're not trying to make fun of him. You're trying to get him to get in touch with his inner Jew without having to bore through all the walls. That's what Lubavitch is. Really. That's what Lubavitch as a Rebbe is. And it works. The fact of life is that it works. I mean, the very fact that he told me, I want to believe in God and I can't, was a huge revelation on his part. It wasn't the beginning of the conversation. It didn't happen when I walked in. That happened 2 hours in. When a person says, I want to believe in God, but I can't, he just said, I believe in God. That's what he said. I believe in God, my brain doesn't let me. That was a huge admission on his part. You understand? Anybody else?
If you do feel that somebody will gain from explaining it to them, in other words, they'll let's just say they'll consider that after the Taka is an Eivishter in the world, is it important to have a discussion?
I can't answer that question because I don't know every person. I just believe that most people use their brain as a wall. In other words, most people who have intellectual conversations are really not listening. They're really, really not listening. They're waiting for you to finish so they can say what they want to say. Those rare individuals who are, to use a cliche, truly open-minded, and you almost never find such people. They're really hearing you. If you say something that they don't know or they don't agree with, they're actually open to changing their thinking. Yeah. But if you told me there's 1 in 1,000 like that, I'd say you're exaggerating. Most people use intellect as an excuse, which is another way of saying most people are really not that smart. Most people don't have their own philosophy of life. Most people are philosophy, they read a book, or they read 2 books, or 3 books, or they met some sugar on a plane. People sound smart are not necessarily smart. And the proof is you're in a merry-go-round, it's a circle. So if you have a person who's humble enough and has enough integrity to actually listen to you, there's a point. But I've met such people, but very few. Very, very few. Really, very few. Okay, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Pasha.